running as independent candidates, a move experts say could cut into the votes of mainstream parties and their candidates. That has also meant that separatist leaders are no longer forcing locals to boycott the polls, nor are voters fearing violence from militants in Srinagar.
पहले झिझकते थे ना नाम लेने से हम इनको नहीं डालेंगे इनको डालेंगे उनको नहीं डालेंगे इनको डालेंगे अब सरेआम बोरेआम हमने फलानी पार्टी को डालना है.
Whoever wins will also be expected to address the issues of high unemployment, inflation, and struggling businesses. Roughly 20% of Kashmir's youth population is estimated to be jobless, a crisis that locals say has worsened since the region lost its status as a state.
सबसे बड़ी बात है बेरोजगारी. पढ़े लिखे ऑटो चला मजदूरी कर रहे हैं. पीएचडी वाले आपने देखे होंगे रेड़ा चला रहे हैं.
But the top demand for nearly all voters is to make Jammu and Kashmir a state again, irrespective of the party people are supporting. It's something Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has long promised to do, but not delivered on yet. This despite his government repeatedly claiming that federal rule in the region has helped Kashmir's economy and helped fight armed insurgency and terrorism. This is why the visit by diplomats is being called an effort to show how peaceful this region really is. Those who visited said they did see democracy in action. But for the people here, they say that true democracy for them will only be witnessed when Kashmir gets its statehood and they have a bigger say in how their region is governed. Ishan Garg, CNA, Srinagar, Kashmir.
The race to replace Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is shaping up to be a close contest. Three candidates are dominating the polls, one of them former Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba. The 67-year-old is making his fifth bid for the job. Michio Ishida weighs up on the chances of a breakthrough for the veteran politician.
Shigeru Ishiba is hoping the fifth time's the charm as the 67-year-old gets ready for yet another race for the top job of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party.
自分の38年の政治家生活の集大成と位置づけ、最後の戦いとして全身全霊をもって挑んでまいります。
A banker turned politician, Mr. Ishiba was elected to the lower house of parliament in 1986. He held various cabinet posts before and was Minister of Defense in the Yasuo Fukuda government between 2007 and 2008. Running for LDP president for the last time, Mr. Ishiba made an eyebrow-raising proposal for a NATO-like security framework in Asia.
集団安全保障、そういう機構がアジアには存在をいたしておりません。日本国の独立と平和、そしてアジアの独立と平和、これをどのように維持をしていくのか。
The former LDP Secretary General first threw his hat in the party leadership race in 2008. At that time, he got the least number of votes in a five-horse race that saw former Prime Minister Taro Aso emerge the winner. Mr. Ishiba ran again in 2012 in another five-way battle. In 2012, Mr. Ishiba had more support from the local LDP chapters than any other candidates, but lost in the runoff against Mr. Shinzo Abe, as rank-and-file members were not allocated voting entitlement. And Mr. Abe won. This time, local chapters can vote in the runoff, but are entitled to only 47 votes. Still, it will represent just 13% of the total votes that will be cast if the election goes into a runoff on Friday. It's a system that's been criticized for failing to give adequate representation to the grassroots of the party. In media polls, Mr. Ishiba is consistently ranked among the top favorites for LDP president. But in this election, the public cannot vote. Mr. Ishiba is factionless like his younger opponent, Shinjiro Koizumi. The difference is, Mr. Koizumi already has the backing of a party heavyweight who is also a former prime minister, with Yoshihide Suga throwing his support behind the 43-year-old. Michio Ishida, CNA, Tokyo.
Japan is bracing for Typhoon Cimarron, which locally they've named as Typhoon 16. The storm is moving in a west-northwest direction towards the Kyushu and Shikoku areas. The forecast is for the storm to make landfall sometime this weekend. The country's meteorological agency has urged vessels in the storm's path to exercise caution. Well, over in the Atlantic, the U.S. state of Florida bracing for a major storm in the next couple of days as Hurricane Helene intensifies and swirls towards the state's western coast.
Florida has declared a state of emergency with numerous evacuations and school closures ordered.
Residents living on the Gulf Coast have been filling sandbags and boarding up windows and doors in preparation for the approaching storm. The National Hurricane Center has warned of threatening storm surges of up to 4.6 meters that could hit the Florida Keys and most of the West Coast.
I'm worried about the storm surge, the water that could be 4 to 8 feet in my house and I lose everything.
Helene is forecast to churn into a Category 3 hurricane when it hits Florida's Big Bend region, which lies just south of the state's capital, Tallahassee. And the NHC said Helene could dump about 38 centimeters of rain in some parts of Florida, causing flooding.
Governor Ron DeSantis said residents anticipate widespread power outages as the eye of the storm hits for the region. State officials are urging residents in harm's way to evacuate or make preparations immediately before it's too late.
Helene lashed Cuba with as much as 20 centimeters of rain, tearing roofs and uprooting croplands. Authorities closed schools and ports across most of the western half of the Caribbean island nation. And earlier this week, Helene also struck Mexico's coastal state of Quintana Roo, bringing torrential downpours which soaked Cancun's popular beach resorts and other areas.
Singapore has officially agreed to abide by the world's first United Nations treaty protecting the high seas. It's among the first countries to ratify the agreement. Singapore hopes the move will pave the way for the treaty to come into force. The agreement will take effect 120 days after 60 member states give their approval. The treaty was adopted by consensus at the United Nations last June. It enables the establishment of marine protected areas beyond national jurisdiction. This will allow for conservation and sustainable use of marine diversity. The Foreign Affairs Ministry says the move reaffirms the importance that Singapore places on the legal framework for the ocean.
In the next hour on Asia First, commuters head for alternate routes as the train disruption between Jurong East and Buona Vista stations here in Singapore continues. We'll bring you an update on the situation on the ground.
Sri Lanka's new president says he plans to restart negotiations with the IMF to restructure the country's $2.9 billion loan.
Asian shares are expected to start the day on the front foot as a weaker yen and Beijing's stimulus measures prop up sentiment. Plus, we sat down with DBS's North Asia head for an exclusive interview on the bank's strategy as the People's Republic of China marks the 75th anniversary of its founding.
事。
There's no limit to how far a dream can take you. Star in your own adventure now. Qatar Airways.
The CNA documentary, The Exiles, has been nominated for the 2024 International Emmy Awards.
There are a lot of people who don't know nothing about me, and that's a bloody disgrace.
Watch it again on a special encore telecast. Here on CNA.
夏明琪，爸爸又一次踏错寻找你的真诚。
为什么这么孩子被人贩子到底偷到哪里去了？
还有这么多的鸟尸体，全是死的呀！
看放了，都看放了。
有看到人员吗？有看到人员吗？
手上这些线索只能一条一条去落实。也希望就在这些线索里面。
他说：“别找了，别找了。”
其实我感觉我不是在帮助别人，我感觉我自己是一种救赎。希望你能快快回来。
Asia First.
Good Thursday morning, I'm Julie Yu. It's 8 a.m. here in Singapore, where commuters are facing a second day of train service disruption. Now, the operator says no trains will run between Jurong East and Buona Vista stations after a traction power fault broke down yesterday.
I'm Claudia Lim, standing at a bus stop next to Jurong East MRT station, where many have been experiencing travel delays as they head to work or school. Authorities have also assured students sitting for a key exam that even if they're late, they will be granted the full duration of the exam paper.
I'm Arnold Gay. The other big stories we are tracking this hour. Fears of an all-out war in the Middle East climb ever higher. Israel vowing to speed up its military operations against Hezbollah without reprieve. The U.S. says it's working to calm tensions as it continues to push for a diplomatic solution.
We still believe that there is time and space for diplomacy. We want to see a diplomatic resolution and a solution to prevent an all-out war.
West Jammu and Kashmir more voter turnout in the second phase of its election compared to a decade ago. Diplomats from 16 foreign missions observe the process as the Narendra Modi-led federal government seeks to dispel criticism over free and fair polls in the Himalayan territory marred by militancy and claimed by both India and Pakistan.
I'm Elizabeth Neo with your business news. Southeast Asia's largest lender, DBS, says it remains invested in Greater China despite geopolitical challenges. Even more from the bank in an exclusive interview as the People's Republic of China marks the 75th year of its founding.
We are very orientated towards having a very long-term strategy and commitment, not only to China, but also to Chinese companies having an ambition to grow globally.
Plus, stocks in Asia Pacific set to open in the green as a weaker yen and Beijing's stimulus blitz prop up the region's two largest markets.
The commuters in Singapore are facing another day of train service disruptions on the east-west line, which cuts across the island.
The operator of the line, SMRT, says there will not be regular train services along 4 stations between Jurong East and Buona Vista. It says bridging bus services will be made available instead as alternative transport.